One of the first things that we need to make sure you are doing is pooping regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean every single day. Not twice a week, not 3 times a week, and not 10 times a day either. That can create an issue as well. But I'm talking 1 to 3 times a day. Not pooping essentially means that estrogen and these toxins are going back into circulation. Now, as we can imagine, this is going to impact our fertility. Estrogen is a hormone that plays a very important role in female fertility. Hello, my dears, and welcome back to another episode of the Nutrient Dense Podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into the connection between gut health and fertility. So I did a quick search before recording for this episode, and it pulled up that between 15 to 30% of couples are diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which I find just wild. And there's so much that we can look into here when this is the case. And today we're going to be really talking about the many mechanisms through which and ways that our gut health can actually impact our fertility, because our gut health has a massive impact on our hormones. And I have some kind of like other episodes where you can deep dive into that, and I'll chat through those in this episode. But yeah, let's just go ahead and dive on into it. So I mentioned this on a previous episode as well. So I did a full deep dive on the gut and estrogen connection. So how our gut health influences estrogen levels and it influences our thyroid health. And I'm going to bring up both of those topics today because both of those things impact our fertility. But we're going to be jumping into kind of the connection here. So we don't usually think of the gut as part of the hormone system, right? But it is technically not an endocrine gland, but it does act like an endocrine organ. So specialized cells in your gut lining actually produce hormones that control things like hunger, like GLP-1, right? And most people know what that is at this point. Blood sugar and even mood. So while your gut is not technically an endocrine gland, it kind of talks hormone. And it's doing way more than really just digesting your food. The gut really plays a role in hormone synthesis and conversion and clearance. And your diet, your gut immune system, your gallbladder, your liver, your pancreas, and of course your gut microbiome are really important players when it comes to the activity of hormones, such as estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, and even blood sugar regulating hormones. So let's jump right in. Now, one of the number one ways in which our gut health impacts our fertility is because the gut microbiome plays a major role in actually metabolizing and regulating sex hormones, especially estrogen. So certain gut bacteria and these microbes that we have in the gut microbiome, they're called the estrobolome. And that is really, if you put the word together, estrogen plus microbiome, you get the word estrobolome. And this portion of the gut microbiome produces enzymes like beta-glucuronidase that help to actually recycle estrogen. So we have estrogen detoxification mainly taking place in the liver. And then we have phase 3 of estrogen, like really clearance, like clearing it out of the body is truly occurring in the gut. We basically dump this excess estrogen through the stool, right? So if you are not pooping regularly, if you're not eliminating regularly, if you're struggling with constipation, you will lean more estrogen dominant. We aren't able to actually excrete and dump this excess estrogen. But there is part of your gut microbiome called the estrobolome that is kind of responsible for these circulating estrogen levels. And we run into issues when our gut is imbalanced in the state of something like dysbiosis. Maybe we have fungal overgrowth, we have bacterial overgrowth, maybe we have something like SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Then this estrogen clearance can become impaired, and this can lead to that estrogen dominant state, right? Which can then look like in the body, we'll get PMS, we'll get fibroids, we can have irregular cycles, we can have breast tenderness before our cycle, we can have like clotting. So basically, in a healthy gut microbiome, we have estrogen made in the ovaries, going through all the rest of the bodily tissues. Then we have it going into the liver. We're starting to deconjugate it, package it up for removal in the liver, and then it is moved into the gut. Now, in a healthy gut microbiome, most of this estrogen exits out of the body and some of it goes back into the body. And that enzyme beta-glucuronidase is involved in this. Now, when we work with clients inside of our programs, we are testing this. So one of the markers that we will see on a functional stool panel is that beta-glucuronidase marker. And this really clues us into, is someone really leaning more estrogen dominant via the gut microbiome? It can also signal the need for like some additional liver support, gallbladder support, estrogen detoxification support. But a lot of this can be stemming from the gut. So this is also why a lot of common kind of like hormone balancing protocols or whatever they might be are missing the mark if they're not looking at the gut microbiome piece. Now, in an unhealthy gut microbiome, we have this estrogen being produced in the ovaries, right? And then being sent to all these different bodily tissues to do its job, then being sent to the liver, and then being sent to the gut. Then we can have these higher levels of beta-glucuronidase, really allowing more estrogen to come back into circulation and be reabsorbed and capable of binding to estrogen receptors in the body. So when we get this dysbiosis picture, when we get this imbalance of our gut bacteria, the estrobolome, that portion of the gut microbiome that's in charge of circulating estrogen, it either upregulates or downregulates this beta-glucuronidase, leading to either a deficiency or an excess of estrogen. So poor gut health can equal excess estrogen kind of coming back into recirculation, and then we'll get the symptoms like PMS, fibroids, heavy periods, etc. And this is especially important, you guys, if you are dealing with constipation. I'm recording this podcast today after doing 2 other teaching. I taught a masterclass to someone's community this morning, and then I was interviewed on another podcast. And this is kind of like, I feel like this is my 3rd time saying it today, but we need to be taking constipation seriously, because in the case of constipation, we will have basically the stool is sitting in the body. We are going to get this reabsorption of these toxins into the body, in addition to the reabsorption of this excess estrogen. So one of the first things that we need to make sure you are doing is pooping regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean every single day, not twice a week, not 3 times a week, and not 10 times a day either. That can create an issue as well. But I'm talking 1 to 3 times a day. And we want nice, healthy, solid stools, not liquidy stools. They're not floating. You don't have to wipe a ton of times after using the bathroom. They're not leaving marks on the toilet bowl. All of those are signs that we have deeper internal gut imbalances. But this is really important, because not pooping is essentially means that estrogen and these toxins are going back into circulation. Now, as we can imagine, this is going to impact our fertility. Estrogen is a hormone that plays a very important role in female fertility. It's involved in many different aspects of the reproductive cycle. So it's involved in ovulation. It's involved in the uterine lining, right? Estrogen actually helps to thicken the lining of the uterus, or that endometrium, making it suitable for implantation of a fertilized egg. So lower estrogen levels can lead to a thinner endometrium, which can actually hinder that egg implantation. Estrogen also influences the production and consistency of cervical mucus. Fertile cervical mucus is thin and watery, allowing sperm to easily swim through and actually reach the egg. So lower estrogen levels can result in thick and sticky mucus, which impedes that sperm mobility. Estrogen also contributes to the quality of eggs. So optimal estrogen levels support the development of healthy and mature eggs. And estrogen also needs to be in balance with these other hormones like progesterone, right? And this is really important for proper reproductive function. Imbalances in these hormones can affect our fertility. So estrogen and I'm sure we already know this, right? Estrogen and progesterone are playing a very important role when it comes to fertility. So it only makes sense to, when we are looking at fertility, and anyone with unexplained fertility or anyone that's having issues getting pregnant, it only makes sense to look at the health of the gut microbiome, right? And I would say this is worth diving into, even if you have been told that all of your labs look quote unquote normal. There is almost always more that we can dig into and explore. And it is very common for hormone labs, like you go to your doctor, get blood work, and you get your hormones tested, your estrogen, progesterone, whatever it might be, and things look normal. So your doctor's like, I don't know, everything looks good. You're just not getting pregnant. Just give it time. Or they're like, let's just try IUIs or whatever that might next step might be. But really, we can still work to optimize your hormone health and balance. And sometimes that looks like going back to the health of the gut microbiome. And this is one of the reasons why, but we're going to get into like so many other really important reasons why looking into your gut health is really important when it comes to optimizing your fertility. Okay, so the number 2 way that your gut really impacts your fertility is because it is playing a role in immune regulation and plays a massive role in inflammation. So your gut is home to like 70 to 80% of your immune system. When we have this chronic inflammation in the gut, this will then trigger that systemic inflammation, which then negatively impacts and affects egg and sperm quality, ovulation, luteal phase function, and endometrial receptivity, or that implantation. So we often hear inflammation, right? Everyone talks about inflammation and throws it around, and inflammation is playing a role in all of these different disease states. However, we have to ask, where is this inflammation actually coming from? And if you've been listening to this podcast with me, you've heard me say this before. The gut is responsible for so much of this inflammation that someone can be experiencing because of the fact that the majority of the immune system resides in the gut itself. So when we have this dysregulation in the gut microbiome, maybe we have an overabundance of these more dysbiotic gut bacteria. Maybe we have an undergrowth of these more supportive, healthy gut bacteria. Maybe we have infections. Maybe we have an overabundance of these lipopolysaccharide-producing gut bacteria. All of these things are going to increase inflammation, trigger inflammation with the majority of the immune system in the gut itself. So whenever we're looking at inflammatory conditions and or immune regulation or dysregulation, like in the case of autoimmune conditions, we have to take a look at the health of the gut. In addition, inflammatory gut conditions can also contribute to things like fertility-related disorders like endometriosis, PCOS, or even autoimmune thyroid issues. The other thing to note here is that inflammation can also worsen insulin resistance. And I'm going to get into the gut and blood sugar connection here soon. But by worsening this insulin resistance, this can make conception and optimal progesterone production quite difficult as well. And these autoimmune conditions can actually increase the risk of miscarriage and prematurely reduce ovarian reserve. Any autoimmune condition, we have to look at the health of the gut microbiome. What is contributing to this consistent activation of the immune system? Well, if the majority of the immune system is in the gut, right, we have this hyperpermeability of the gut barrier, we're getting that consistent activation of the immune system over and over and over. So the gut is really responsible, or kind of like a core player in our immune regulation and our inflammation levels. Okay, so the third point here that I want to make is the connection between our gut health and our nutrient absorption. And I've said this on previous podcast episodes before, because poor nutrient absorption is going to impact everything in the body, right? So poor gut health is going to cause poor nutrient absorption, and that will then impact everything in the body, but also including our fertility, because there are many important nutrients when it comes to fertility. Things like B vitamins, right? Key for ovulation and preventing neural tube defects. Things like iron and zinc, which are really important for egg and sperm development. Things like magnesium and selenium, which support hormone synthesis and antioxidant protection. All of these nutrients are going to take a hit if we have poor gut health. We won't be able to absorb the nutrients from the food that we are eating efficiently, and or, you guys, the supplements that we're actually taking. So the majority of these nutrients that we are taking in through our diet or supplements, these things are being absorbed. They're all being absorbed in the gut, right? They're being absorbed some are in the stomach, some are in the duodenum, some are in the jejunum, the ileum, and the large intestine. And there's cool diagrams that you can like Google and pull up if you really want to see that breakdown. I find it fascinating. So we have all these different nutrients that the body needs being absorbed in these different places in the intestines. As you can imagine, a breakdown in that intestinal barrier, a breakdown in that gut barrier is going to lead to issues absorbing these nutrients efficiently, along with poor digestion is going to negatively influence the absorption of these nutrients. So it's very common to see those with chronic gut issues and digestive issues have issues like with low B12, with low iron, with low vitamin D. This is not a coincidence. Our gut health and our gut function influences the proper absorption of these nutrients. So there's a lot of research to show that like those with SIBO tend to have low B12 and low iron, right? And that's because so many of these nutrients are being absorbed in that small intestinal barrier. It's semi-permeable in nature to absorb the nutrients from our food. So when we have an issue with that gut barrier, if we have an overabundance of bacteria in the small intestine, we've got SIBO, right? We have a ton of overgrown bacteria in the gut that is then going to wear away at the gut barrier, triggering that systemic inflammation. This is also why we'll see a lot of people with SIBO have like skin issues, chronic rashes, acne, eczema, things like that. It's also going to negatively impact our nutrient absorption. So you really are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. As you can imagine, if we cannot properly absorb the nutrients from the food that we're eating and or the supplements that we're taking, our fertility is going to take a hit. We need all of these things. I mean, think of if when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you want to get pregnant, you got to take a prenatal, right? We start to amp up the nutrient stores. We start to add more into the body, more nutrients, more nourishment, so we can really provide for and kind of like optimize fertility, right? And our bodies can have all of the raw materials that it needs to grow a human. I mean, this is a really big deal. Now, when we have these deeper gut issues, we will have issues absorbing these nutrients. So this is a major way in which or how the gut really impacts our fertility. The other kind of key way and key thing that I want to bring up here is the gut health and thyroid health connection. So I have a whole episode on this. I believe it's one where I talk about estrogen and thyroid health together. So we'll link that in the show notes for you guys below if you want to like a deeper dive with me in that episode, because I go a little deeper. I'm going to go a little bit more kind of like high level here. But essentially, your gut influences your thyroid and your thyroid influences your gut as well. So this connection is bidirectional, just like the gut-brain connection. It's happening both ways. And your thyroid hormones really have kind of like impacts on and effects on virtually all of your bodily tissues. Changes in thyroid function will affect your gut, and changes in your gut health will affect your thyroid. So the hormones that the thyroid produces directly impact how your digestive system functions. Now, when we don't have adequate thyroid hormone and these hormones at the right levels, we will run into gut and digestive issues. So an example of this would be someone with hypothyroidism, right? So they have sluggish thyroid function. Maybe they don't have enough thyroid hormone available, or they're not converting enough into a usable form of thyroid hormone. And in this case, everything starts to slow down. This is why we see those with hypothyroidism. Some of the key kind of like signs that someone may have hypothyroidism is something like constipation. It's something like chronic fatigue. You're freaking exhausted. It's something like hair thinning. It's something like cold hands and feet. Like this, everything in the body starts to slow down a little bit. So we will see with that sluggish thyroid function, our gut motility slows down, and then we'll end up with that constipation, which will then cause more bloating and can then also lead to an increased risk of something like SIBO or that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So that's kind of like a very quick recap of how the thyroid influences the gut, right? But what's most important here is that the gut, they're all important. So let me just get that on the table. It's all important. But for this episode, the gut is heavily influencing the thyroid, right? So about 20% of thyroid hormone conversion is actually occurring in the gut microbiome by some of these gut bacteria. So most of your thyroid hormone is being converted in the liver, which is why when we are working with clients with sluggish thyroid function, we are always doing a lot of liver work with them. We do a lot of liver work with most of our clients, I will say, because people are just inundated with toxins left and right. But it's a lot of liver work. It's a lot of like optimizing liver detox pathways and bile flow and things like that. But 20% of this hormone conversion. So we have inactive thyroid hormone and we have active, right? So we have T4, that inactive form of thyroid hormone. And then we have T3, which is that more active form of thyroid hormone, which is also why you always want to dig deeper when you're working with someone, and don't take just your TSH, your regular TSH at blood work that your regular doctor may run as like the end all be all. We always want to dig deeper and explore a more thorough, functional, like full thyroid panel, because it's going to give us a lot more information. because your TSH can look totally fine, but your T3 and your T4 and your reverse T3 and all that stuff can look weird, or your antibodies can be really high. And we can come in with targeted support wherever that breakdown is, right? So if you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I am constipated and my hair is falling out and my eyebrows are thinning and I am having issues getting pregnant and I'm gaining all this weight, right? And I don't know what's going on. And you go to your doctor and they test your TSH and they're like, it's fine, it's normal. Don't take that as an answer. I mean, all of those are signs of sluggish thyroid function. So definitely like work with someone else and dig a lot deeper and explore getting a full thyroid hormone panel. It's just simple blood work. It should be covered by a lot of health insurances. We always, when we're working with clients, we try to blood work through insurance when we can. You know, if their doctor's like willing to cooperate. Some doctors will run for it, no problem. Some doctors will not run for it because they don't know how to read it and they don't know what to do with it, which I don't need to get on my soapbox there, but I continue to be disappointed. That's what I'll say. So anyway, going back to my main point here is we want to run that full panel to check in on everything, but the gut is a key player in this thyroid hormone conversion. So essentially, when we have an imbalanced gut microbiome, how do we know if we have an imbalanced gut microbiome? We have a lot of gut issues. We have a lot of bloating, constipation, diarrhea, food sensitivities, histamine overload stuff going on. Maybe it's chronic acne. These are all signs, right? How do we actually know what's going on in your gut microbiome? We've got to test. That's why we run functional stool testing on all of our clients. This is how we're going to see what's actually going on in your gut versus just kind of guessing, right? So when your gut microbiome is imbalanced, maybe you have an undergrowth of these good supportive gut bacteria. Maybe you have an overgrowth of these more opportunistic gut bacteria. Maybe you have a parasitic infection, something like that. Certain parasitic infections, like very strongly correlated with something like Hashimoto's. So a lot of those that have Hashimoto's have parasitic infections and or Helicobacter pylori infections. Maybe I'll do a whole other episode on that sometime. But these things are messing with your gut health. They're messing with your gut microbiome. That's then going to contribute to poor nutrient absorption, which I already talked about that. We know that's important for fertility, but that's also going to lead to poor conversion from that inactive form of thyroid hormone, T4, to that active form of thyroid hormone, T3, in the gut. So when we have these gut issues, this is why gut issues and thyroid issues go hand in hand. This is why those that have been diagnosed with something like hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's almost always have IBS. It's not a coincidence. Like these systems are impacting one another. Sometimes the question's like, what came first? You know, did the IBS come first or did the thyroid issues come first? It doesn't fully matter, I will say, because we want to kind of address it all. But it's very common for those with a sluggish thyroid function to have these deeper gut issues. And then, you know, over time, that can also lead to issues with fertility. So poor gut health equals sluggish thyroid, which then equals fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, and possibly even fertility issues. Your thyroid health and your thyroid functioning properly is massively important for fertility. This is really, really important. So I'm going to get up on my soapbox here just a little bit, you guys, and say, if you can control it, if you have any control over the situation before you get pregnant or before you start trying, get a full thyroid panel. That is T4, T3, reverse T3, TPO antibodies, TGAB antibodies. What else am I missing there? TSH, of course, right? We want to check, dig deeper into your thyroid health because it makes such a massive difference when it comes to optimizing fertility. So if you can, before you get into that, like once I hit that stage in my life personally, I'm getting extensive blood work. If I can, unless it just happens and then it's all good. We can't control everything in life, right? That's totally fine. No shame in that. But full thyroid panel, functional stool test, like let's dig into all of this stuff to see what is going on before you spend, 12 months trying unsuccessfully. And I say that with like so much love and sensitivity because I don't fully understand because I've never been through it myself, but I can only imagine how strenuous and difficult and exhausting and painful it is to go through a journey where you're trying so hard to conceive and you can't, right? So I truly hold so much space for women that have to deal with that. And it's so, just exhausting and defeating. And I'm just here to like educate you and give you some options, right? Because when we feel like we can do something about it and there's other things that maybe were looked over, we can feel empowered in that. And then it could really change the game for us too. So always looking into some of this deeper stuff when you are embarking on a conceiving journey, a fertility journey. When it comes to fertility, thyroid dysfunction impacts fertility by really disrupting the hypothalamic pituitary axis, which affecting egg and sperm quality. It can cause menstrual irregularities and it can increase the risk of pregnancy complications. So both hypo and hyperthyroidism can lead to infertility and even miscarriage. So definitely something to explore, even if you've gone to your doctor and they're like, your estrogen progesterone looks good, like you're young, just try, right? Let's dig deeper into this, into your thyroid health, which largely is honestly your gut health, right? Always good to dig deeper into all of that. So there are many different ways in which the gut really impacts our fertility, right? So just to recap what we've kind of covered so far, I feel like I'm talking a little fast in today's episode, you guys. Sorry. I have talked a lot today. So let me try to slow it down for the second half. First off, your gut heavily influences all these different hormones, but huge impact on estrogen levels and estrogen circulation. And we can understand how that would impact our fertility, right? Then we can see that inflammation and immune regulation component to this as well. Then we also have the nutrient absorption piece of the puzzle. And then we have that thyroid health piece of the puzzle too. The next thing that I want to cover with you guys today is this connection between gut health and blood sugar. And this is honestly super fascinating. It's really interesting to me. So your gut microbiome plays a massive role in how your body actually regulates blood sugar. And it influences everything from insulin sensitivity to post-meal glucose spikes and even metabolic disease risk. So our gut microbiome is comprised of these trillions of different microorganisms, right? Most of them are hanging out in the large intestine or the colon, some are in the small intestine, some are in the stomach, but we have like way lower levels of these microorganisms in the stomach and the small intestine. And we have trillions of bacteria in the large intestine. If you can even like conceptualize that, that's insane, right? So that's really what your gut microbiome is. It's this ecosystem of trillions of different microorganisms. It's not only bacteria. We also have archaea. We have fungi or yeast, things like candida. These are naturally occurring in there. We can even have parasites naturally occurring in there as well. Now, when you eat a fiber-rich diet, when you eat any fiber at all, fiber or prebiotics, your gut bacteria or these probiotics, you've probably heard of probiotics, right? These things eat up these fibers, these fiber-rich foods, prebiotics, and then they produce these things called postbiotics or short-chain fatty acids. And these short-chain fatty acids actually help to regulate your blood sugar levels by improving insulin sensitivity, by reducing inflammation, which can drive insulin resistance. They also signal to the liver to balance glucose production. They can also enhance GLP-1 or that glucagon-like peptide 1. We've all been hearing all about the GLP-1s these days. So they can enhance that GLP-1 secretion, which is a hormone that improves insulin resistance and actually reduces appetite. So I think this is just kind of a little segue, but important to point out just on the note of GLP-1s here, because like they're making the rounds and everyone's all into them. And I'm not exactly 100% sure how I feel about them yet. I think we need to see a bit more. I don't really mean to comment on it like that. I more so mean that we can actually help our GLP-1 production, help support GLP-1 production by eating the right foods. So when we support our gut microbiome, when we eat fiber and protein-rich foods, we can increase the secretion of GLP-1 hormone. So if, of course, this is going to be in much lower levels than an injection, that's like we're getting a much higher dosage. However, I think we would be remiss to just completely overlook the fact that we can support this healthy GLP-1 production that does help improve insulin resistance and reduce appetite kind of in a healthy way, right? Not to the point of undereating, naturally by just eating healthy whole foods with a big emphasis on fiber and protein. Just kind of a little note on that, just because, you know, it's so popular today. Everyone's talking about GLP-1. This is naturally occurring in the gut. It's secreted in the gut. And it basically happens when we eat these fiber and protein rich foods, enhance this GLP-1 secretion by feeding our gut microbiome the right things, and then having our gut microbiome and these bacteria produce these short chain fatty acids. Another thing to note here is that certain gut microbes can actually slow glucose absorption from the intestine, really helping to regulate or kind of flatten those blood sugar spikes after meals. And dysbiotic gut bacteria, or those kind of more negative, bad, quote unquote, bad gut bacteria, can actually extract more calories from food and produce inflammatory compounds like lipopolysaccharide or LPS. So two people can actually eat the same meal, and one can have a greater blood glucose spike from it than someone else. And this is partially because of the health of the gut microbiome. So you can literally extract more calories from certain foods that you eat if you have a more dysbiotic gut microbiome. And if you don't have those gut bacteria that can actually like slow that absorption of blood glucose, we can also see a higher blood sugar response to some of these foods. So kind of amazing, right? Two people can eat the exact same meal and have a different blood sugar response to that meal, and also extract a different amount of calories out of that meal. Very interesting. Now, when it comes to the connection with fertility here, blood sugar levels are really crucial for overall hormone balance. If you have listened to any other episodes of the show, I feel like I say this ad nauseum. You cannot balance your hormones without balancing your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is all erratic, it's up and down, you're skipping meals, you're intermittent fasting, you're not eating enough, you're eating more carbohydrate dense meals, or you have some insulin resistance, there's so much that can be going on here. But if we are dealing with this blood sugar dysregulation, our body is going to be really prioritizing cortisol and insulin. All the other hormones are going to be kind of like deprioritized. It's not that they won't be produced or anything like that. But when we are producing a lot of cortisol, for example, that is going to, our body's going to prioritize producing cortisol over progesterone. So you cannot balance your hormones without balancing your blood sugar. This is like absolutely step one. If you have any hormonal imbalances, if you are trying to get pregnant, if you have painful periods, if you have a lot of cramping, a lot of clotting, anything like that, like blood sugar balance through the food that you're eating, big emphasis on protein and fiber here. This should really, truly be number one. Stress is also going to bump that blood sugar. So you can get up to give a big presentation and you haven't even eaten a thing, and your blood sugar can skyrocket due to your cortisol. Isn't that just lovely? I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even want to see my cortisol before some of these podcast interviews that I do. It's just really interesting. So this is a good place. It's a good place to start for you if you're kind of on this journey learning that. And I have a whole podcast episode dedicated to balancing your blood sugar. And we'll make sure to pop that in the show notes below as well. I walk you guys through a couple steps that are like super important and are going to set you up on the right track. It's a very action-oriented episode. Like step 1, step 2, step 3, do these things, apply them. Come back to me in 3 months. Let me know how your periods are. Okay, so blood sugar levels are really crucial for hormone balance, but also egg quality. So high blood sugar actually negatively impacts fertility in both women and men by disrupting hormone balance, damaging eggs and sperm, and affecting ovulation and implantation. So this erratic blood sugar can also really heavily impact our ovulation as well, and just the quality of eggs. So this is really, really important. So it's like when we're looking at fertility, blood sugar plays a really big role, and our gut plays a really big role in our blood sugar regulation. So once again, it comes back to gut health, but it's not only gut health here, right? Learning to balance your blood sugar, whether you have gut issues or not, is very, very important to optimizing fertility. But it is possible that there's a deeper gut issue contributing to your poor kind of like blood glucose response or some insulin resistance and things like that. When we work on feeding your gut the right things, when we work on supporting the short chain fatty acid production, we can help your body really improve insulin sensitivity. We are big fans of eating enough protein over here on Team Han. Protein is essential for muscle repair, a strong gut lining, balanced blood sugar levels, and so much more. For most of our clients, we like recommending around 100 grams of protein per day to start, and adding in a good quality protein powder can be super helpful for hitting those numbers. It's an easy add-in. You can throw it into a smoothie or even add it to oatmeal. Choosing the right protein powder can feel so overwhelming. Half of them are full of fillers and crap ingredients, and the other half, honestly, just taste bad. Equip Protein is one of my go-to recommendations for our clients and one of my personal favorites. We love it because it only has a small handful of ingredients. It's 100% carefully sourced, real foods, no additives, allergens, chemicals, fillers, or other junk. It's gluten-free, and it contains 21 grams of protein per serving. Equip's Prime Protein also offers a complete amino acid profile. It's also independently tested to make sure that the protein powder is free of harmful amounts of heavy metals and toxins like glyphosate, which is honestly super hard to find. Equip Prime Protein is a grass-fed beef protein. So it is animal-based, but it's dairy-free, unlike whey or casein protein powders. Grass-fed beef protein is packed with collagen, gelatin, and micronutrients that your body needs. We also see that it's typically much better tolerated in our clients with chronic gut and digestive issues over something like a plant-based protein powder. In addition, some of their flavors do contain natural flavors, but they're distilled vapors from natural and organic compounds or fruits like vanilla, coconut, and strawberry, and are processed without any chemicals, fillers, binders, or artificial ingredients, which once again is incredibly hard to find. Personally, I buy both the chocolate and the vanilla flavors of the Equip Prime Protein, but honestly, they have like so many other incredible flavors out now. If you're interested in trying out Equip Prime Protein, you can use the code Hannah Aylward HHC at checkout for 15% off, and we'll pop that code in the show notes of this episode for you as well. So once again, you can go to equipfoods.com, choose the flavor of protein powder that you want, and then use code Hannah Aylward HHC for 15% off. Okay, so one of the final things that I want to talk about is just some like interesting research more along the lines of like gut infections and gut imbalances. So before we kind of talked about like concepts, right? Blood sugar, thyroid health, all of this kind of stuff that can influence our fertility that is largely stemming from the gut microbiome. But I do find it very interesting, and I am not surprised literally at all, that there is some research to show certain gut infections can influence fertility. I actually didn't pull up any research about parasites. I would be interested to see that. So I think there was probably some connection there, but I'd have to look into the research. But I pulled up in prep for this episode specifically on Helicobacter pylori and then also on dysbiosis. So there is research that shows it was really a meta-analysis of case-controlled studies that found that H. pylori or a Helicobacter pylori infection, we see a ton of this in our clients, is significantly more common in those with infertility compared to controls. Now, I will say not all of this research is perfect, right? So sometimes we're looking at correlation, not causation. Sometimes we're looking at meta-analyses. Sometimes we're looking at studies that are much smaller. So you can kind of take it with a grain of salt, but I would say there's really no downside into investigating this stuff if you're struggling and if you're really looking to optimize. I love being able to support women in their kind of preconception journey while we work to optimize their overall health before they try to get pregnant. This is what I will personally do, once again, if I can control it. And we do get a lot of women like this who want to prep for fertility, who want to work on their gut issues. You also give a huge portion of your gut microbiome to your baby. So that's once again, no shame or guilt associated with like, if you weren't able to do that, if you can't do that or whatever, that's not the purpose of this like whatsoever. It's more so just if you can give your body a little TLC before doing something like this, highly recommend. And also if you've been struggling to get pregnant or if you've been struggling to maintain the pregnancy, let's dig deeper into some of this stuff. There's really cool information and kind of research to explore here. So just some of this research, I don't have the specifics of each study in front of me, you guys. I probably should have for this prep, but I just wanted to note a few things. You can always look deeper into these studies, but this does not surprise me, right? So there was that meta-analysis of case-controlled studies that found that H. pylori infection is significantly more common in those with infertility compared to controls. There was another study in men that showed that H. pylori infection has been associated with reduced sperm quality, lower motility, increased apoptosis and necrosis. There was another study showed antibodies to H. pylori and cervical mucus correlate with impaired sperm penetration, suggesting a direct effect on fertilization potential. So that's just that one infection. Like I said, I didn't look up research on parasites. However, I do believe I've seen that before, which once again doesn't surprise me because when we think of these gut infections, What are they doing? They're causing inflammation. They're disrupting the rest of the gut microbiome, which is then disrupting our thyroid. They're activating that immune response. They're triggering that inflammation. They're damaging the gut barrier. They're reducing our nutrient absorption. So it makes perfect sense, right? Like I'm in no way am I surprised about any of this. Then we have this dysbiosis component. Dysbiosis is not an infection. It's more of just kind of a condition of the gut microbiome. There's many different profiles of dysbiosis. So we can have these different imbalances of gut bacteria in the microbiome. But studies comparing the gut microbiota of infertile versus fertile women showed differences in the bacterial composition and reduced diversity in infertile women. Gut microbiota are also involved in fertility-related endocrine disorders, things like PCOS, endometriosis, premature ovarian failure, which are all risk factors for infertility. So we see the gut microbiome playing a role in PCOS. We see it playing a huge role. I would say a huge role in PCOS, a huge role in endometriosis, right? Triggering that systemic inflammation. We always want to dig into gut health in any endo case. It's always a little trickier, right? Because there's more severe inflammation and all of that. But tons of women with endo actually have SIBO. The question is kind of which came first. With that being said, I do believe that the gut microbiome plays a massive role in endo personally, and SIBO could be at the root of a lot of that. We always have to ask, how did we get the SIBO in the first place? So there is more to explore there. It's not super duper black and white, but looking at optimizing our gut health and rebalancing this gut microbiome and supporting the strength of that gut barrier, I mean, it's only going to benefit you, you know? So when I'm looking at some of this research, even if it's not, we know definitively that we're not really saying that H. pylori causes infertility, right? That's not what I'm saying. It's more so that like, oh, we looked at these people that were struggling and compared to controls, these people had higher levels of H. pylori. So there's kind of some like correlation, not so much causation. So I just want to be clear about that. And I'm not saying that these gut infections cause infertility or dysbiosis causes infertility, but is it a contributing factor? I would say yes. And I would also say by doing this deeper gut work, it's only going to benefit you. I mean, there's essentially no downside, but I could be a little biased. I could be a little biased and I own that. But with everything I've shared with you today, I mean, come on, it's impacting your thyroid, nutrient absorption. It'll impact your skin. It'll impact your estrogen levels. I mean, it's only logical to think that the gut plays a massive role in fertility, right? And these are kind of some of the different mechanisms and ways in which it does. So we will see that we have kind of that decreased diversity, reduced diversity in women that are struggling with fertility. And then of course, going back to my original thought here was the endo piece and the PCOS piece, right? Because in endo, you know, we're getting so much inflammation. And yes, sometimes these endometrial like lesions can mess with our gut motility that can then further cause SIBO. But especially in the case of any woman who's gone in for surgery, right? So maybe you've gone in to like remove some of these lesions, but unfortunately what you're usually told is that sometimes the doctors will just tell you they'll come right back. Sometimes the doctors will tell you you'll be fine. And then they come right back a year later and you're like, what the F? Like I underwent surgery for this. So my 2 cents for anyone that kind of like fits into that bucket would be to explore the deeper gut work. And surgery, it won't always prevent surgery. And sometimes surgery won't even fix the issue. This is a bigger conversation. But if you are even going to embark on surgery to remove some of these lesions, like let's also do the deeper gut work and reduce that inflammation to see if we can avoid some of these things from coming back and at least better your quality of life, like at the very least. So lots to explore there. I should probably do an episode on endometriosis in its entirety another time. It's honestly not like my complete area of expertise. There's so much that we're learning about it. But I'll bring on an expert for you guys and I'll add my 2 cents. I think that's what I'll do. But we have definitely seen lots of women with endometriosis and we've seen them get, pretty amazing results by doing this deeper gut work, which once again, doesn't surprise me. So that's what I have for you today. All the different ways in which our gut health really impacts our fertility. So, you know, most of my audience really knows if they have a deeper gut issue, you're struggling with a lot of chronic digestive issues, but I would say consistent bloating, excess gas that impacts your day, food sensitivities and intolerances, abdominal pain, cramping, constipation, if you're not going every day, diarrhea, reflux, stools that float to the top of the bowl, right? Stools that are like rabbit pellets. This is a big sign of constipation. Or if they're those like they're really thin and kind of like longer stools, that's also a sign of constipation. Acne that doesn't go away with topical support, eczema, psoriasis, hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's or sluggish thyroid function, chronic fatigue, Crohn's, or ulcerative colitis. All of these are signs that we should be digging deeper into your gut health, especially if you are going to embark on a journey of optimizing your fertility, but also even if you're not. Let's do that work and support you there too. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. We kept it a little high level today, wanting to get through kind of all the different ways that the gut plays a massive role here. And as always, if you're interested in working with us and finally like getting some functional lab work and digging deeper, really looking under the hood to see what the heck is going on in your gut and how can we repair it, and really working to repair it at the root cause level using things like functional lab work, targeted nutrition, customized supplement protocols, lots and lots of support, working a lot on like adrenal function, liver function, gut health, all of that really good stuff, blood sugar balance. We cover all of that in our programs with clients. You're in the right place. We'd love to help you. And you can always book a link with me. You can book a strategy call via the link in the show notes below. I'm booking out a couple weeks in advance right now. So if this does interest you, I'd get on there sooner rather than later. And then as always, if you have any questions about any of this, you can always send us an email. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can comment. If you're listening on Spotify, you can always comment below, ask your questions, or let me know what you guys want to see next on the podcast. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. This one was really fun for me to put together. And I will say, I think I've joked about this in another episode previously, but I had to put a disclaimer on my program because in HGSB, in my signature Healing Guts and Shaking Butts program, someone was always getting pregnant. Every single round, we'd have 1 to 2 people get pregnant and they'd have to stop their protocols. Because when you're pregnant, you can't take like a lot of supplements. We're just missing a lot of like research. It's kind of unethical to test supplements on pregnant women, right? It's also why we don't have a lot of research when it comes to like mold illness, because it's unethical to like put people in a moldy environment when we know it's dangerous for them. So that is why, a lot of supplements, like doctors err on the side of caution, practitioners err on the side of caution to just be like, we don't really know, don't take it yet. But anyway, my point is we had to get people stopping their protocols and stopping the program because they were getting pregnant. And this was after working on like blood sugar, minerals, liver function, hormone balance, gut function, decreasing inflammation, enhancing nutrient absorption. So I had to be like, you guys, please try not to get pregnant because we can't finish the gut work with you. So of course, the fertility journey is nuanced. It's not black and white. It is bio-individual, and it is not a one size fits all. And also, there is so much that we can do to support your body in bettering your chances, and also potentially even bettering your chances of like successful IVF as well. So even if you end up going that route, I would still explore some of this work if it's feasible for you, because it can help with that entire process too. So big hugs to each and every one of you. Thanks for being here with me today. And I'll see you in next week's episode. Okay, bye y'all.